What gave me the idea of METUM? Well, it was last summer. I have to really thank my friend Savannah. I was working on a couple of still frame animated projects. I previously did a film called Misread, which was basically footage compiled without a script. And I constructed a story around footage I would just shoot, like on the fly, without any preparation whatsoever. And that was kind of an experimental film, which I did in fall of 2015. So I took a bit of a break, and I was kind of going back and forth on this still frame kind of experimental motion comic film that was going to involve vampires, and I wasn't sure whether or not to pursue it. So I did a couple of panels after taking a break from it for a while, and a friend of mine, Savannah, basically said, you know what, these look great, go for it. So that's how my creative drive kind of got revved up, so to speak. Her reaction to the drawings basically inspired me to move forward with the project. However, I kind of got stuck halfway through the script, and I couldn't find voice actors because my previous still frame animated films, I've either done like a music video or just with little individual text cards. I wanted to have voice actors. So I didn't find about half of the voice actors, and then some of my other friends, which is like the other half of the cast, basically said, hey, whatever you need for a short film or voices, we can help you. So my friends Jay, Ben, and Yvonne offered to help, and I didn't find any other voices besides theirs, and it either was scheduling conflicts, availability, or just not wanting to do it. So I decided to take a break from that project. And at the same time, the Deep in the Heart of Film Festival was announced in Waco, Texas' first film festival. And I thought, wouldn't it be cool if I made a film for a film festival? Because Misread, I didn't want anybody else to really see it, and it was kind of an experimental film that was more personal. So I went ahead and decided to make a film to submit to a festival. That is how I got started on METUM. And before that, I was also working with a computer software GarageBand on the score, and by doing that I kind of got an idea for a horror film. I kind of wanted to do a horror film this time around. So that's how the idea of METUM got started. I was dealing with different titles before I wrote the script. I always like to come up with a title and the ending of the film before I move on with the writing process. And it was going to either be Phobos. I wasn't sure whether to have it like dreamlike or real, so I had the Spanish title Ensueño for dream. And finally I ran across the Latin word METUM for fear, because fear has been used in many other horror short films. It was a Mark Wahlberg, Reese Witherspoon film, and I didn't want to just use fear as a title. I wanted to do something different. So with the words of M, yeah, METUM ended up being the title, and I used that as the basis for the rest of the film and the idea. And the idea of it really was, wouldn't it be interesting if somebody was writing a script and their script basically started to seep into reality? A lot of other influences were the recent Goosebumps film, but before that, Wes Craven's New Nightmare and the film Last Action Hero. I thought of those different type of films and how cool would it be if like I was writing something and it was appearing on screen. And yeah, there's a lot of crazy stuff that happened in the production of this, but that's how I came up with the idea of METUM. And I knew I wanted to center around the theme of fear, not only with the creature I created, but also the characters, their own individual insecurities. We all have that voice inside our head that just bogs us down, but also we have different fears, phobias, insecurities about ourselves that affect our everyday lives. And I wanted to see if this writer, with his own insecurities, I wanted to see him dealing with that in his writing process and in creating something. I wanted to see his insecurities and fears within the creation that he's producing throughout the film. So I thought that was very interesting. So after the idea process, I started writing the script, and basically I came up with the idea of the entity through, again, several horror films, Wes Craven's New Nightmare, but I knew I wanted to have something different that was just more based on, again, the feeling of insecurity and fear. I wanted to be more of a supernatural entity that is basically powered by a person's fear. Much like Freddy Krueger in the Nightmare on Elm Street series, he attacks people's dreams, but people believe in him. People believe he's real, and because of that, he becomes more powerful within the person's dream. So that's how I kind of wanted to have the entity function is basically him become powered by individuals' fears that he's after. So you can see with the little girl in the movie, the boy, the main protagonist, he goes after them and he becomes stronger and uses his abilities based on their individual fears. And I like that, so that's how I came up with the idea. As far as a costume, during Halloween of 2016, I wanted to be Ghostface from Scream. Be like, what's your favorite scary movie? So I got a costume at Spirit. I thought, hey, I'm going to use this for both my film and Halloween, so I kept the cloak, and then I got those really kind of like rubber latex gloves you get at the automotive department or to deal with electricity jumper cables. I got those, and then for $5 at Walmart, I saw this mask just passing by. I always like, around Halloween season, I always go by the Halloween decorations when they start to set up when I get groceries, and at Walmart I saw this mask. And something about it just spoke to me, like something about it just looked eerie. And I was originally going to just have somebody or myself with eyeliner painted, but the eyes didn't look menacing, so what I did is I got my sunglasses and I put it under and then had the mask. So when it was for the really kind of dark type of scenes at nighttime, you could tell that it didn't have any eyes. It was like there was just pure darkness within its soul. So it really helped to make it come to life. And that's how I came up with the idea of the entity and the script. And pretty much from there, I just wanted to do shadow shots. So the first scene I shot for the film was the scene you see in the movie where he's under the light outside. I always thought lights like that look very creepy in real life, and I'm like, that's like a horror movie right there, or like the beginning of Harry Potter, you know? Just something about it looks like magical yet eerie at the same time. So I did that shot that you see in the movie. That was the first scene shot with the entity, and it just had a cool silhouette, just kind of figure, because it was just like almost darkness. It was like nothing, yet something at the same time. And again, that helped represent individuals' fears and the entity being powerful and being whatever the victim's fears are. The sound effects for this film, some of it I actually got from a short back in 2011. My nephew Manny and I had this idea for like a killer Santa Claus doll called A Bloody Christmas. We never got to make it, but I did make some sound effects saying like, "You're on the naughty list." And then we round it through Sony audio forwards, so it was just like naughty list backwards. So when you watch the movie and some of the sounds, you can rewind it, and backwards it actually says like you're next or you're on the naughty list or stuff like that. It actually is just that, those words said backwards but in a growl. So I used that as the basis, and I also used it for a pitch I had for a vampire short film called The Collective. But I reused just different stuff I did from tests years earlier, and then I added more of the microphone and just added like a... And then I basically put it through GarageBand and added audio effects of like echoes and just drowned it out and just messed with it a bit, and that's how I got the different roars and growls and just different creature effects for the entity and the film. It's pretty much just me making gibberish and adding effects to it. But also, it's not exactly like a line, person, like it's not, it's like one of those sounds that's just so like universal to like, it could be anything. You don't know what the hell it is. It's just like you hear it and it's just like, what was that? It just sounds weird. And I like that weird quality about that. The casting, well, I kind of did it in a short time frame. I meant to start it in the summer, and it was going to be with my nephew Zachary, and we never got around to it. The summer just came and went. And I was running out of time to submit for the film festival, so the more I started thinking about it and writing it, the more I was like, you know what, I could really put a little bit of myself into this. And it wasn't originally going to have me in it, but I didn't really have any other casting choices at the time. And I pretty much just saw, what do I have? I have myself, I have my family, I have this house, I have this room I'm in right now, I have the city of Waco outside, I have my car. I just listed the different things that I had, and I pretty much decided to use it within the script, and then my friends as well. So, because of that, I cast myself as Michael. And since I was writing it, I used a lot of the real script that I actually used for the film in the film. And then I basically shot the ending first. So the ending you see with me with a beard, I had a full-grown beard when I was writing the script, and I came up with that ending first. And then what I did is I basically shaved and then just shot it in chronological order to the best of my ability. And after that, I did some of the victim scenes, grew back the beard, and just shot the very ending again. So I did that and then some reshoots. But besides that, I needed some children, and I decided to use my family. My nephew Zachary was in 2 films of mine previously, The Hit and Misread. And I thought, hey, why don't I just have my nephew and niece in it? Now, my nephew Zachary was supposed to be the entity and also in there, whether I gave him the option to do both roles, but he wasn't available, so I just had my nephew and niece. So my niece was a little girl you see at the beginning that's the first victim, and then my nephew is a second victim that's by himself at the house. And I shot them 2 separately, so they're the 2 characters of Alicia and John. And then, as far as voices, Nicole was originally going to cheat on Michael, and you were supposed to hear that in a phone conversation, but I decided not to go with that, so I just decided to have it where it's like he has a girlfriend back home, but at the same time she supports him, yet really is just fed up with him because he has his chance, his opportunity, and his own insecurities are bogging him down. He has the ability to get to basically overcome whatever he's going through, and he just doesn't do it, and that's really getting to her. So for Nicole, I decided to get my friend Minerva. Me and her go back to film school. She was in my RTF 318 class, I think, if that's a number, yeah. Early work, so yeah, I go back with her at UT, and I realize she's a big fan of the horror genre, but she's never been in any of my films. And since I was going to submit this to a festival, I wanted to get different people and use different people that haven't appeared in my films before. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to have her as Nicole, and that's where I got my friend Minerva to play Nicole. Everything around my hometown is kind of like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and I wanted to add something like
Michael Myers or Jason?
Yeah, but kind of more in line with Freddy. I just needed to think about something that empowers him.
Oh, I guess that could work. Just don't have him attack dreams. That would be ripping off. So it was nice to just have somebody else that's one of my friends that hasn't been in any of my movies to be in my movie, so that was nice. And then my friends I mentioned earlier, Jay, Ben, and Yvonne, decided to help. And Ben Granger was a voice of the agent at the beginning.
No, I don't care if you got through on the other screenplay. We need something for the studio before we move on to someone else.
And Jay Farney was the guy who was attacked, and Ben Granger was a special guest director on that. So it was nice having their help, and then everybody just in different areas help around. And then finally, my friend Nader played the paranormal expert, Dr. Pavel.
Good evening, Mike. I read your message.
And he got a nice disguise there with the glasses and everything. So everybody got to play a different part, and it was nice just having like everybody from RTF and my film school just be in this movie, as well as family that hasn't been in there. But also you get some familiar faces and people who haven't been in my films before. So that's really quite nice to have different people this time around that I personally know, but nobody else has really seen in my films or heard. So that's nice. And my nephew Zachary was a news anchor. I added him as a news anchor voice because I feel that he was a bit left out in this. But luckily he didn't die in this movie, so that's nice. Ben shooting guest footage was amazing. It was a bit of a deadline, but I'm so glad that he was able to get it done, and I commend him for it. It's nice having a guest director. I never really had a guest director on one of my films before, And he shot that over in California, and I'm over here in Texas, so that was quite a time difference, but it was still pretty cool to see somebody else's interpretation of what I wrote. I've never seen that before. I've always made my own scripts and short films or ideas, so it's kind of cool to see somebody else film something that I wrote and bring their own interpretation to it. So yeah, it was great. I mean, that must have been what like Robert Rodriguez felt like when he had Quentin Tarantino guest direct Sin City. I mean, it was just wonderful. And Ben, I kind of know him a bit from RTF, but like we never really worked in a film together. So besides a voice and then guest direction, that was really cool. What was it like editing that footage? It was awesome. Again, it's something that I wrote but somebody else directed, but it was cool because I had a general idea of where to put it with the stuff I filmed, but it was nice seeing that in juxtaposition with the footage I shot, and it went together very nicely. And it was also a bit of a challenge because it's like, what do you keep and not keep? Everything they shot was so good, and I was just like wondering how do I arrange it in a certain way.
So it's taking shape from your head? So it's taking shape from your head? So it's taking shape from your head? What? Get the hell out of here! What? Get the hell out of here, man.
Editing, there's so many possibilities, but it was pretty close to the original script, and I just like it because I wasn't there when it was shot, so basically receiving and editing that footage was the first time I saw any of the other film, and that was kind of nice to see with the stuff I shot. I kind of had an idea of what was going to be in there, but to actually see it and then be able to edit it with my footage was really a fun thing to do. And again, it's a relief because you weren't there, you didn't shoot it, so you weren't thinking about editing it already like when you're in camera. So receiving it from somebody else is just a joy. It's almost like an editing exercise where you have an assignment and you must edit it in a certain way. So that was kind of cool, mixing two different type of styles put together, yet have a certain theme and feeling that is consistent with everything else in the film. So that was nice.
More like it's literally coming from the page into reality.
What? Get the hell out of here, man.
So it wasn't too difficult. It was very fun adding the sound effects, the music, just blending everything and just having to go parallel back and forth to my footage and his footage, and it was a blast. The most challenging part filming METUM, my nephew's a niece. My nephew did a good job. My niece really didn't want to film. She was down for it, and when it came time to filming, she didn't want to film. Above that, we also had very, very, very dark lights outside. I thought it was going to be a little bit more lit up, and it was still very dark. I had a T5 camera, a Canon DSLR. But above that, she had a dog, and I wanted to keep the dog there because he would bark when there's a stranger near, and it just added a lot more level of intensity. He loved that rubber glove I had, and he wanted that as a chew toy, so he constantly kept on getting in the shot, which I don't mind dogs, but he really, really loved that toy. It wasn't done in a violent way, it was more of a playful way. If it was a violent way, I would have kept it in the film, but that was a challenge, and then just doing some of the effects and everything. I think above all, I had help from my friends and everybody, but as far as cast and crew, here, just the crew, there was no crew. It was just me shooting, setting up shots, filming, acting, editing, everything was just all on me, and it was kind of a struggle to get some of the more intense parts out.
So step and start. And action. Step forward and then just stop. Okay, we'll stop there, and then you're going to say, who are you? Get away, I'll call the police, and they're going to try to punch me.
Who are you? Get away from me. I'm gonna call the police on you.
Tell you when. And action. It's an act like you hear a bang noise and you get startled. Now check. Look left and right in the living room. Left, right, left. And then just check around the house, in the hallway and stuff, and I'll follow it. walk in.
Okay.
So just walk back and then walk into the hallway like it's the first time.
Yep.
Okay. I'm gonna say that looked. And then
Oh yeah, guys. You can always just use the force instead of back.
yeah, we'll do that. Oh, what did the recorder? Son of a bitch!
Oh, do you want the knife too?
Yeah. We'll do the force. And act like you're injured.
I don't know if it's actually this section work with the force. Alright. That'll work though. Oh, you can always just slam my head against this. Just go slam. Slam.
You know what? You may have an idea, Manny. Now it is.
For just $1 a day, you can help save a poor kid and
Okay,
yourself.
Okay, go down and then we're gonna go up. Oh, I have an idea. Okay, now. Okay, stop. Okay. What the hell? Take one, use this. Take one, side angle, flicker. And it really wore me out. I really need a crew. When you film a movie, you really need a crew to help you out. And it was hard. You can't do this by yourself. Somehow I got this short done. And because of that, it wasn't done in the best possible way. I think the most challenging part is like filming stuff and then seeing how it turned out. And you're just like, darn, I could have done more with that. But you still have to move on. So besides some of the filming difficulties and that's what really got to me. And this is the most challenging part. Life blends to reality. I was typing METUM. It started to rain. There was no rain in the forecast. It rained for like 2 weeks straight here in Texas. And then when I filmed, just strange occurrences happened with like bugs, noises. My camera fell. My camera broke in the middle of production, my T5, and it broke the viewfinder so I couldn't see what I was filming. And I wasn't even near it. First it fell in the entry hall and it was on the tripod, supported and everything. And then it just fell and it was in the hallway by carpet and it ended up in the entry hall. Then it was by my bed here when I was filming some shots when my friend Nader was having his Dr. Pavel footage. and it fell without me touching it. Everything was supported, locked in, and it fell against the bed, broke the viewfinder. My camera was out of commission, and it was like a couple of weeks before submission deadline, and I was just like, oh no. I was running past the deadline, going to the late deadline, and I just couldn't believe it. I was just devastated. I was crying. I wasn't equipped being a filmmaker. I just was in tears and in emotion. My parents, lucky enough, got me a T6 EOS camera, DSLR, and they helped out, and that's why you see some of the footage. Some of it's a little bit more sharper and clearer than the others, is because I shot on 2 different cameras. But that was a challenge for a while. I thought that was it, but stuff like that was just happening. There's some crazy shit, and then when I was editing, after I submitted it, I was going to do another copy for this upcoming release, and the footage was lost, like all of it. Luckily, I had it backed up to another hard drive, and I re-linked everything and imported it. So, yeah. It was just a crazy process. From beginning to end, stuff was just happening that was just out of my control, and it was just weird stuff. So I feel like I'm like the character of Mike, where I'm doing this project, writing, filming it, and just crazy shit's happening in real life, like it might happen in the film. So it was just bizarre. Like I said earlier, I created the score from GarageBand. I just did some tests, and I just wanted to do a horror movie theme. And it was before I came up with the idea, but it was through GarageBand on the musical keyboard.
I don't know what to make yet. I'm on GarageBand. I want to make a horror film, but I don't know what yet. So I'm just going to create music, because I really want to make a horror film. So let's try something. Hungry. Maybe.
I was inspired by John Carpenter with Escape from New York, Halloween, Goes to Mars, and I did a synthesizer thing. So JKO was like dun dun dun, and I like the sound of it. I had a couple of areas right here where you see, and I was just going through it, and then finally it's like, and that became the theme. Also, I've always used some copyrighted music or other people's music. I've never scored anything. So I really wanted to do something differently on this film, and again, I thought, hey, if I can't find royal-free music, why don't I create it? So I decided to go with a synthesizer type of score. And that was fun, because that's the first time I ever composed something for a film of any type. And I liked it. It was through GarageBand, very low budget, but I ended up doing it, and it was fun. That was a project within itself, besides writing the film and directing and acting. So yeah, I would definitely do it in the future, but it was really nice for the score, thinking of scenes and just coming up with a score for the scenes that I would shoot. And it was a very different experience for me, and one that I learned a great deal from. Sometimes I would edit based on the score. I did some scores before I shot anything in the movie, and I just plopped it on there, and that sometimes affected the editing. But certain parts, I knew what I wanted on the edits and what cuts. The music didn't fill it, so I'd create more original music to fit the scenes. So it was a bit of both, of either just like editing footage based on a score I did, or scoring new material to match the score. The final confrontation, I edited the thing based on the score. I did the score as well, to where I have my hand there, it's like, and then when he appears, and just different things like that, more of matching with beats and just rhythm and motion, really. And that's what I did. So yeah, it was a bit of both. But yeah, that's pretty much, when being a composer, that's how I came up with my themes, that little. But John Carpenter score, just all that. I really wanted to have like a Halloween 1979 vibe to it, and feel very low budget 80s films. Another thing that influenced me was hearing the Stranger Things theme from the Netflix show. I was really heavy into watching that when I wrote this, and just hearing that 80s score, and I'm like, good, I'm already doing synthesizer stuff. And I watched that theme, and I watched that intro, and I'm like, you know what? people love 80s themes still. There's an 80s theme in this. It's all synthesizer, the music, and I'm like, I can make a synthesizer score. So that was the most heaviest motivator and influence on the METUM score. I was hearing Stranger Things and some of the old John Carpenter films and going like, you know what? I could use this. It still be relatable, it still be relevant, and it's still usable and very effective. So yeah, that's how I moved forward with the score and like the feeling of the theme. Well, besides some of the recent stuff with the footage, like I mentioned earlier, I think the main challenge was making it under 50 minutes. The film festival had a deadline of 50 minutes or less for a film, a short film, so that was a definite challenge, getting everything in there, as well as putting the sound effects and shots. Some of the split stuff I learned from Misread, so that wasn't hard applying that. I think more the effect shots and timing, and also covering up the low budget quality of the film really was challenging. The beginning attack, since my niece didn't really want to film, I wanted to do more with that, and it was hard to try to kind of cover it up and just make it exciting in a way. So just making certain scenes slower or faster with music and just imagery really was a challenge. That was probably the biggest challenge I faced in editing, besides also keeping it under 50 minutes. And yeah, it ended up being like 41 minutes long, so that wasn't too bad. It almost went a little bit over. But this film has a lot of narration and different sound effects, so it's just a matter of like pacing, really. That was the biggest challenge of the film. METUM, what prompted the reshoots? Well, I did not make the Deep in the Heart of Texas Film Festival at all. I was kind of bogged down a bit, and I knew the quality wasn't up there to what I originally envisioned. And I was a little bit disheartened, really, for making a film or shooting any more stuff. And what prompted it is I wanted to do more scenes and make it more elaborate. I didn't have the time. The people didn't want to do it. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to do some reshoots here and there. Just little things to make it flow better, look better, and just add a little bit more to it. I know I can't make it to what I originally envisioned, but I know I can make it a little bit better to the state it is right now as a film. So that's what prompted some of the reshoots. Also, I had a different camera, and there were some shots that were either out of focus or didn't work well, and just stuff was going on that I wanted to reshoot. And I added more effects to just make it a little bit more intense in the final confrontation. So I did some of those reshoots just to basically, you know, add more emphasis on things, clean up some stuff, and also add to the pacing and just enjoyment of the film towards the end. Because I feel like besides the attacks, you kind of have a build-up and then it just kind of ends on a whimper. It really doesn't build up. So I decided just to add a little bit more to where it's not to the fullest capability it could have been, but it's still somewhat enjoyable like the first half of the film. How do I feel about the end result? I want to do so much more with it. I originally envisioned this to be much better. I wish the attack scenes were a little bit more realistic. My nephew Manny helped out a great deal, and that was supposed to be a little bit more intense, but we did some stuff with the head and also have him go outside, but what made that difficult was that it was very dark in that house, so the lighting was not very good, no matter what you did. It was very, very hard to shoot in there. And yeah, just some of the attack sequences, and then when there's blood on the phone, I wanted it to be more gory and just blood drip out of there and out of the phone. Instead, it looks like I just put syrup everywhere. So that part of it did not really feel like what I wrote. I mean, it was exactly what I wrote, but it didn't feel like what I imagined in my imagination. So yeah, even though it's not the best film of mine, it is the most different from my previous films, and it is a great experience I learned a great deal from. So yeah, METUM just has its own place as it is right now. I was going to submit it to different film festivals and reshoot some stuff, but then I decided it's not really worth it. I know when there's something good and when there's something that's just not very good, so I didn't want to spend the money on a festival, and I wanted to use that money on another film that I know I can make better than this one. But ultimately, it's its own little experiment and something very different from my previous work. So yeah, I look on it as an experience that just furthers my filmmaking skills. And that's how I feel about METUM. A bit of a missed opportunity, yet something that's kind of an exercise on its own that I hope people somewhat enjoy or just find something out of. Will I ever try to make a horror film? I learned this. If I do make a horror film, I'm going to probably wait to have a budget for a horror film. But if I do, yes, I'm probably going to make a vampire film, a couple of vampire films. And I have a couple of horror movie ideas in the works that I've been trying to make, and I probably will make those in a movie someday. As far as like something like this, maybe. I kind of am toying with an idea of a METUM sequel, but with a different character and stuff, but using this entity. I feel like I didn't get to use this entity to the fullest capability and possibility of where this character could go, so there might be something related to this character. I'm not sure yet. I'm just kind of like theorizing. That's a theoretical question there, but definitely I will do a movie in the horror genre again, although it may be a bit more slasher or supernatural with a budget and a crew and actual other actors. That's when I would do another horror film, or really any other film for that matter. This will probably be the last film I act in that's in my own. There's a Dual Retribution sequel for my short called The House of Vengeance that I will act in the future, and there's also 2 prequel movies and a feature-length sequel to a short film of mine called The Hit that I have ideas for that I'll reprise, and maybe some other things if I feel confident enough to do it. But other than that, I'm not going to act in my own films again. I kind of felt like the acting was a bit weak in my film here, and that I was too preoccupied with writing, directing, editing that I didn't really get to focus on acting. So if I do act, it'd be in other people's projects or just other films and stuff. But yeah, as far as my characters, I'm going to wait for a couple of other characters to act in. And horror genre, yeah, absolutely. I will direct in the horror genre in the future again. So yeah, that's pretty much what METUM was about, and thank you for asking me these questions. That's how I feel about the film. I have my certain reservations about it and feelings that I'm proud yet also disappointed in myself at the same time as a filmmaker, besides the film festival, the quality of the film, what I set out to do, what I actually accomplished, that type of stuff. But it's a learning experience, and we all can learn from our films and develop and get better and better with each project. So I look on it as kind of like Mike the character, overcoming his fears and insecurities onto something better. He must overcome his fears and inadequacies and insecurities, whatever, to move past and become stronger. So yeah, that's how I look on METUM. And again, thank you to my friend Savannah for, like, you know, getting my creative flair back as far as working on other projects that led into this one when I was on a kind of on a writer's block. And then Caleb, thank you for selling your equipment. I got another lens and a dolly that came to good use, so thank you for that. Thank you, my friends Jay, Ben, Yvonne, Nader, Minerva. Thank everybody who helped make this film. Mom, Dad, thank everyone who supported me throughout the years and for this film. I could not have done it without y'all. And yeah, enjoy METUM on Vimeo and YouTube, on the Frederick Lopez channels on Vimeo and YouTube. And yeah, we'll see what the next project will hold.